Hello folks, welcome back to YouTube. Well, I come back to YouTube because it's just so much easier to work with. As you see, this is a whole different setup here now. I hope you like it. And there's no more reason for censorship or strikes from the, you know what I mean? That's been over with for a couple of years now. And we're just dealing with political issues from Canada and a little bit of the US, and basically this one here is last week and a little bit before. There's a heads up, here's a warning. There's some Trudeau in here, but I suffered through the full length, so you don't have to. I've cut clips of anything to do with Trudeau down to a bare minimum. So let's get rolling.
We need to be ready to respond robustly, as we are.
As the Prime Minister gathers business and political leaders in Toronto, a hot mic moment reveals Justin Trudeau's thoughts on Donald Trump, saying the U.S. president is not joking when he talks about annexing Canada, about how Donald Trump truly feels about taking over this country. CPAC's Andrew Thompson was covering the summit in Toronto. He joins us right now. So tell us a bit more about this candid comment that was made by the Prime Minister, Andrew, because again, it was not meant to be shared.
That's right, Michael. So the Prime Minister delivered those opening remarks that the media were allowed to cover. And then, as media were being escorted here on site back to the media filing room, some reporters passed by a speaker that actually had a live audio feed from inside that closed-door session. And what they heard was the Prime Minister say that the threat of annexation, that this threat from Donald Trump was real, and that it was actually tied to Canada's supply of critical minerals. Here's how the Toronto Star quoted the Prime Minister. "They're very aware of our resources, of what we have, and they very much want to be able to benefit from those. But Mr. Trump has it in mind that one of the easiest ways of doing that is absorbing our country, and it is a real thing." And then soon after that, Michael, the audio feed was cut off.
Yeah, cut off, but not before it was reported by our friend Tana McCharles at the Toronto Star. But you know, the Prime Minister, interestingly, Andrew, did not scrum after the comment was shared widely, but his ministers did. What happened there?
Well, it's interesting, Michael. Ministers wanted to focus on some of the, what they call the positive conversations they've been having in Washington recently. They wanted to focus on some of the big issues of this summit, like knocking down internal trade barriers. But three members of cabinet did have to face questions on this connection between annexation and critical minerals. Here's how they answered.
Okay, this next clip comes with a trigger warning. Here's three ministers that are very embarrassing, to say the least, to the country. So this is what we look like on the international stage.
And they understand now better than ever that you cannot pick on Canada and make life more affordable for Americans. You cannot pick on Canada and making sure that you rebuild your industrial capacity, and you cannot pick on Canada and make North America more secure.
Canada is united on one thing, its pride in being Canadian. And we will always, always, always stand up for this country, for its people, and for the ability to make our choices for ourselves.
There will be no messing with the 49th parallel, period.
So here's Bob Fife. Bob's got his TDS in full display, Trump derangement syndrome. It's rampant in Canada. We thought that it was bad. TDS seems to be worse. Especially, well, mainly amongst the Liberals, and throw in the NDP and a couple of Greens.
Well, let's continue the conversation now with our Ottawa Bureau Chiefs. Robert Fife is the Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, Mia Rapson, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Canadian Press, and Joël-Denis Bellevance, Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse. Hello to the three of you.
Hello, Michael.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, listen, we need to talk about this hot mic moment. So here you get this candid comment from the Prime Minister, which he wasn't expecting to be shared so widely. But how does it change the conversations between our political leaders, Bob, and the conversations they're having with industry and community groups?
Well, look, it's gone more beyond the hot mic of him saying that he wants to annex Canada for our critical minerals, but he also talked after the hot mic moment was over by saying that the president brought up a 1908 treaty, Canada-U.S. treaty on setting out the borders, and he said, I can just revoke that treaty and annex Canada. And the Prime Minister said, wait a minute here. You can't do that. There are international treaties. You just can't do this. But that shows you the state of Donald Trump's mind. And the other issue with this is who's telling him this? Because Canadian officials went back to the Americans who they thought had helped organize this meeting, and they said, what is going on with this 1908 treaty and this critical mineral stuff? Well, we don't know. So they think it's Steve Bannon or Stephen Miller or somebody else from the far right.
Bob, Trump's just messing with you. Now, you're just not bright enough to see it. It's all going to come to light. Now, don't be blaming Steve Bannon. Let's listen to what Steve Bannon has to say about this whole issue. And Bob, just take a pill, man.
North of Canada, that open border with whatever climate changes, but the beginning of the Northwest Passage, but more importantly, China and Russia, the great powers, and the United States, fighting it out over the Arctic with the vast resources of the Arctic is going to be the new great game of the 21st century. Canada, you are thrust into the middle of that, and quite frankly, you are the greatest, I don't know if target or prize. You're like asking, you're the great prize of that. That as you awaken, and the geoeconomically, he's saying, hey, the United States market's so lucrative, you're going to have to pay a premium to get through the golden door, right? Canada could be all part of that. The geoeconomics of North America combined, and the geostrategic interest of North America combined, and particularly hemispheric defense, all the way from Argentina and Brazil under Bolsonaro, all the way up to the Canadian Arctic, is what the first half of the 21st century is going to be about. Trump is laying this out in a very sophisticated way, and avant-garde thinkers strategically and economically are coming and say, this guy's onto something. Listen, this is the golden market, right? You're going to pay a toll to get access to the United States. You're either going to have to shift your manufacturing here, or you're going to pay a premium. And this is not a 25% toll tariff punitive on an avocado coming from Mexico, or from a part made in Ontario that comes into Detroit under the hood into an engine. This is something much deeper, right? It's much deeper, that he's going to look at some sort of tariff, trade, and duties to have external revenue in the United States. Now, if you're part of that market, which is what I think he's talking about in making you a state or agreeing with you as a state, then you're inside the golden door. The compelling logic of the 21st century, geostrategically and geoeconomically, is going to make this at least something that Canadian people have to weigh and measure and consider. Look, for a couple of 100 years, you've been part of what was once the greatest empire on earth. You're still one of the Dominion countries. It's just times change, things change, geostrategically it changes, and now you're going to have a rethink. It has nothing to do with the obsession of our revolutionary generation and our framers to militarily invade Canada 3 times, 3 failures I might add, 0 for 3, has nothing to do with that. But I think, and look, people here love Canadians, they just do. So it's going to be something, and when you guys think through the hard decisions that have to be made, particularly the Arctic, particularly hemispheric defense, particularly geoeconomically, what this means, internal logic is going to drive you that somehow we have to figure out how to partner with the United States, and what form that takes. That's what President Trump's genius is.
This is like Trudeau's final, I'll say, finale to his movie of over 9 years, this drama, and he's playing it to the max. This is his last chance on stage, and he's playing with people's heads. The guy is evil. Evil. And people are falling for it. And he's so full of himself right now, he's just having the time of his life on the way out. He's going to do as much damage as he can. You just watch and see. Anyways, here's this lady here. She seems to see through his antiques somewhat.
How does it change the conversation, Mia?
I mean, the conspiracy theory side of me might suggest that this wasn't really a hot mic moment. I mean, even if he didn't expect it to be heard specifically, he didn't go into a room with like more than 100 people thinking this wasn't at some point going to get out. Someone in that room was going to share this information with someone at some point. So he didn't say this thinking it was just going to be a quiet, private moment. I think he actually wanted this sentiment to get out. They were maybe caught a little bit flat early on when they tried to suggest it was just a joke. Maybe they did think it was just a joke and have themselves realized that it's a little bit more serious. But it has changed the conversation. And to me, the fact that they're actually acknowledging that, and of course, Trump saying he doesn't need anything from Canada, but he would like us to become the 51st state. Well, those two things don't make any sense, because if we don't have anything he needs, why would he want us to become a state? What does he want from us? The resources we have that the United States does not. Oil, obviously one of them, but critical minerals is a big thing. There are many of them the United States doesn't have any of, and Canada is one of its biggest suppliers of those. So to actually put this into words, it's I think what people have been thinking and wondering, like, why is he even talking about this? We are finally having the real conversation about what he's talking about, and why this is more than just a joke.
Note I said somewhat. She loses it at the end. Now we've got of course, the spokesperson for the French contingent in Quebec. This guy is a nutcase. Another prime example. Why don't you just leave? Take your province, turn it into your little country, and just bugger off.
Yeah, well, I think it's been interesting to listen to political leaders trying to calm the waters down here in Canada over this 51st state comment, but listening to academics who talk about, political languaging and this idea that it's a clear signal that he does not respect Canada as a sovereign country. Jean-Denis, how does it change the conversation between leaders and business groups and communities?
Well, among Canadians, I think it does change the conversation massively. And we've seen an emergence of nationalism in Canada that I've never seen before in my lifetime.
So this clown says this is nationalism like he's never seen before in his lifetime. Has he been living under a rock or something? Like, gee, let's see. I think I can remember when we had some nationalism. I don't know how this guy missed it. I think it sounds kind of intentional to me, that everybody's grouped together. I guess we were divided a bit by Trudeau and by Theresa Tam, the media. You know what I'm getting at, right? You want to see nationalism? Take a look at this. And now they're popping Carney. Here's Bob Fife running off at the mouth. These people are playing the Canadians for fools. All we're going to hear is Carney, Carney, Carney. You watch and see. This is getting dangerous. This is their game. This is their end game. And it's playing out right in front of us. So here's Fife going on here again about this poll. And how Carney's going to be the savior. And Poilievre is just, well, he's yesterday's man, I guess. Yeah, I don't think so. I hope not.
And so we went out and we, with Nick Nanos, our pollster, and we asked Canadians who was best qualified to deal with Donald Trump. Almost 40% people say Mark Carney, and only 26% said Pierre Poilievre, and only 12.5% said Freeland. All of a sudden, Mr. Carney has become the man to watch, because Canadians look at him and say, this guy ran the Bank of Canada during the financial crisis, got us out of that in 2008, and he was there warning against pulling the UK out of the European Union. So he tried to manage the Brexit crisis, and we're scared. And he looks like the guy that might be well, they're saying he's the guy that's best qualified to do that. And you got to say that Mr. Poilievre and his people must be very, very concerned, because they're still calling him carbon tax Carney, and he's already said, like, I'm out of this. I don't believe in the carbon tax right now. I'd rescind it. And he's also moved to the center. He says no capital gains tax. I'm for pipelines. I'm for electricity grids. I'm for cutting taxes. I mean, this is not the Pierre Elliott Trudeau party. That's the party of Jean Chrétien.
Well, Bob, I wouldn't be bragging about Chrétien. I don't think he built any pipelines while he was prime minister. I don't think he did much of anything, to tell you the truth. He destroyed the military. Gee, Bob, remember the sponsorship scandal? Remember how many seats the Liberals had after Chrétien? I think Carney could do the same damn thing to the country. Trudeau, though, the scandal king, it might be kind of hard to top him. But Carney's got quite the checkered background. And it might come to light, but it's going to have to come through social media. It's not going to be the mainstream, folks. You know that. That's why you're here.
And you talked about retaliation. You want to be Prime Minister in weeks. What does that look like?
Well, the first thing is we have a lot of cards. We're keeping them close to our chests. We'll start playing a few. Those decisions are for the current government. I've been in close contact with our main negotiators, our Foreign Affairs Minister, our Finance Minister, who've been in Washington, our Public Safety Minister has also been down. We will take steps. I think it's reasonable to expect in the immediate term that we will match dollar for dollar the U.S. tariffs. We will target our tariffs against those goods and services that will most affect the United States and least affect Canada. But to be clear, this will have an impact on the Canadian economy, and that impact will be felt more quickly and to a greater extent than the U.S. But Canadians are in no mood to make any concessions here. This is entirely unjustified.
There's a lot more going on than just a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico. Mr. Trump and his intelligence point to what the DEA has known for years. Canada, although it is a G7 nation and has the reputation of a very strong democracy, has been undermined for years by these foreign financial networks. And so it was shocking to most people that American intelligence and the DEA have similar concerns about borders in British Columbia, fentanyl networks in British Columbia, that they do in Mexico. And indeed, in fact, the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco New Generation are working together with these Chinese international triads in Vancouver and Toronto.
Meanwhile, Mr. Carney is adjusting, resetting the Liberal Party, as Bob mentioned, bringing it to the center-right, talking about military spending, yes, but also balanced budget, all those bread and butter issues that is, usually a strong element for the Conservative Party. So he's moving back to where traditionally the Liberal Party has been successful, to the center. And as Bob said, Jean Chrétien would be very happy because the Liberal Party will be flying with both wings with Mr. Carney.
Okay, well, we'll be watching that. That was good. I thought it threw me off.
I'm kind of lost for words. What a bunch of lunatics. Unbelievable. That's the mainstream media? No wonder they're tanking. I mean, I didn't see the humor in it, but they sure did. This is bizarre. We need an election. ASAP. Like, actually, 8 years ago.
I think that we need to make progress on fentanyl so that we don't end up seeing the 25% tariffs come back. And we need to make progress on the things that are irritating to the Americans, the digital media tax, the banking industry, telecom, supply management. Those keep coming up, but those can only be resolved in the context of a broader renegotiation of the Canada-US-Mexico Free Trade Agreement. And that's not scheduled to be done until 2026. So we need an election. We can't have one prime minister start those discussions, a second prime minister carry it a few yards, and then a final prime minister negotiate it. We'd be much better off solving the issue around fentanyl so that it doesn't come back with high punitive tariffs, and then getting an election so that we can get someone at the table to do the brass tacks negotiation for the next 4 years.
It's drug money derived from fentanyl. The vast majority is coming from China. So you take drug money that gets put into the black market and the underground banking system, which I want to get into because it's mind-blowing how sophisticated it is. It goes into this black box of money movement, and then it gets spit out into Canadian casinos where it gets laundered. This is mind-blowing what you were describing. Duffel bags with millions of dollars of $20 bills wrapped in rubber bands, just bricks of 20s. They go into a casino and they get spit out as a cashier's check. And now that money is laundered. And then it finds its way into the Canadian economy and BC real estate. Is that the right flow?
Absolutely. In my mind, as an investigator, I timeline things. So you're right. We're in the fentanyl and meth era now. We could talk a lot about how the U.S. government alleges that the Chinese Communist Party is incentivizing methamphetamine and fentanyl and directly involved in its trafficking.
We should crack down on drugs, not to please President Trump, but to ensure that not one more mother has to bury her face in her hands on learning that her son died of an overdose in a back alley somewhere. We must stop drugs to save our people and put Canada first. It starts with locking up mass traffickers and manufacturers of this poison with penalties that fit the crime. But what is that crime? Let's call fentanyl trafficking what it is. Mass murder. Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd. You might not know who you're killing, but it's certain someone will die. That's why I'm denouncing today, as part of my Canada First plan, that common sense conservatives will bring mandatory prison sentences. There will be life sentences for anyone caught trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. 40 milligrams is enough to kill 20 people. Anyone who is involved in trafficking that amount of fentanyl will get a life sentence. We will lock them up and we will throw away the key. And 15 years for traffickers caught with between 20 milligrams and 40 milligrams will be the new mandatory sentence.
I have to admit, my friends, I'm a little bit emotional tonight. One of the things that comes with knowing that you're on a countdown clock to your last day means you get to be really ruthless about the things you want to do and the things that you don't want to do.
Oh, come on through. Come on through. What is happening here? Wow, what is this lady doing? Trampling. Trampling horses. Trampling. Stop it. Stop it. Look. Oh my God. They just trampled this lady. They just trampled that lady. They just fully trampled that lady. They just fully trampled that lady. There's the lady. There's the lady that was trampled. Yeah, the lady got fully trampled with a horse. What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Well, folks, that's a little look back at the Trudeau years. You see what a tyrant he is and what he could be if he stayed in longer. But no, he's being replaced with Carney, a kinder, gentler, iron fist in a velvet glove. You think Trudeau is bad? I'll guarantee you, Carney gets in, it's going to be a rough ride. And you know, we won't have an election until 2026 if Carney gets in and Singh supports him. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to add one more little clip here, now that I think about it. Speaking of Singh.
How do we retaliate? They're going to attack. Clearly, they've already started it. They're going to keep doing it. How do we keep defending it and retaliation?
I've said this before, and I really believe this. Donald Trump has shown himself to be a bully in many ways. And right now he's being an economic bully. And the only thing a bully understands is strength. We got to show strength. So retaliatory tariffs is one thing. We also have to hit him and his buddies where it counts. So that's why I've called for shutting off the flow of critical minerals. We know that we are one of the only reliable sources of critical minerals for the United States. And cutting off the flow of critical minerals would directly hit Elon Musk, the billionaire buddy of Donald Trump, also the billionaire buddy of Pierre Poilievre, I should say. But it'll hit him directly. And that is a way for us to fight back and to push back. We've got to bring the fight. We've got to show that we're ready to fight back to defend our jobs, to defend our country and our values.
We're essentially in the lead up to an election. Justin Trudeau has said he's resigning. Liberals are choosing a new leader in that process. There's probably it's clearly going to be coming after them for non-confidence motions. Is this the time for Canada to get to an election?
There is going to be an election this year. There are confidence votes that are scheduled by law to happen at the end of March. I will be voting against the government at that time. But we still have about 2 months before that happens. And before that happens, there's a lot that can be done. First of all, we've said Parliament should be recalled right away. We need to pass a package of supports targeting those sectors where people are going to be impacted by the tariffs, making sure those workers have supports, have help, they don't lose everything. We've got to make sure that we've got those workers back. So we've got to pass that package. There's other things we can do too. The inquiry on foreign interference concluded. They have recommendations. They say certain laws need to be changed before the election. We can pass that as well. The Liberals set the schedule. They can set the schedule what bills come forward. They can choose to bring forward those bills, or they can choose to bring forward a confidence vote. The only confidence vote that has to happen by law is the end of March. We're going to vote against the government then. But in that meantime, those 2 months, there's lots of work that we can done to protect Canadians against these tariffs.
So there's the leader of the third party, another Canadian political party, Jagmeet Singh. I'm thinking before the end of March, him and his wife will be out looking for new flip-flops. Shopping for them for the summer. Summer's coming, hopefully. And he'll have his new flip-flops before the end of March. Look, folks, he's lied to us so many times. He's like Trudeau. If his lips are moving, he's lying. Don't believe a thing he says. He has one chance to prove himself. Notice he says the end of March. Well, if Parliament is recalled, there could be a vote before that. And there's a chance for him to flip-flop again. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he does, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. So if you made it to the end here, thanks a lot, and I hope you like the new way of I'm going to be posting the videos. It's going to be, I think, this way every week because it's just easier for me, and I can get a little more interesting subject and get the video clips. I couldn't do that on Rumble, and that's why I'm back onto YouTube. So I think you all have a wonderful week coming up. There's not going to be any shortage of news events, that's for sure. And Trump is going to start poking and scaring them, the politicians. And we're going to sit back and watch it. But I'll tell you, the Liberals, the NDP, the Greens don't count. But those two parties, they're going to do a lot of damage. I wish Pierre would, I don't know. He's got to push a little harder on issues. He's on the fentanyl, which is great. He's got to get on that border. Bill Blair lied. Actually, Trudeau lied. Bill Blair backed him up. Bill Blair, the dirty cop, right? So, public safety, yeah, right. I'm surprised he's not down the border himself with some pepper spray to, well, he wouldn't stop people from coming in because that's their gig, right? Yeah, I think once Trump catches drift, he probably already has, that he's been lied to by the government of Canada, the Liberals. I think we're going to pay a big price. I don't think Trump likes being lied to, and I think he knows how to retaliate. So once again, thanks for sticking it out to the end. Y'all have a great week. Bye for now. God bless.